Between the mighty Tigris and Euphrates rivers, when time was measured by stars and shadows, the earliest civilization emerged. On clay tablets and stone walls, the people of ancient Mesopotamia recorded tales of kings and floods, gods and monsters. Among these stories, none were more enigmatic than those of the Anunnaki and the Igigi. The Sumerian scribes tell us the Anunnaki were children of Anu, sky god, and Kai, earth goddess. Their very name reveals their nature. Anunnaki translates to those who from heaven to earth came. This wasn't poetic language. Sumerians were direct in their records. They described the Anunnaki not as myths, but as tangible beings who descended from the sky. They weren't alone. Another divine group existed, the Igigi. If the Anunnaki were the rulers and decision-makers, the Igigi served as their workers and watchers. Ancient texts speak of 300 Igigi, celestial beings tasked with maintaining cosmic order. But like any laborers facing endless toil, they grew restless. One night beneath the shimmering stars, the Igigi gathered in secret. Though divine, they had become slaves to endless labor. Their conspiracy against the Anunnaki shook the heavens. Fire rained down and cosmic harmony trembled. The Anunnaki convened not with fury, but with reason. Their decision would forever alter human destiny. They would create new beings to shoulder the Igigi's burden, servants that would obey without question, fashioned from clay and blood. Thus, humanity emerged. Our origin is unsettling, created not from love or divine inspiration, but as a solution to a labor dispute. Yet this tale appears on the crumbling tablets of the Atrahasis epic, preserved across millennia. The story evolves throughout the centuries. In Babylonian retellings, the names change, but these beings remain. In The Descent of Inanna, we find a chilling portrayal of the Anunnaki, not as creators, but as judges, 7 terrifying entities who sit in silence, their gaze unwavering, their hearts unmoved. When Inanna, goddess of love and war, ventures to the underworld to confront her sister Ereshkigal, the Anunnaki seal her fate with swift, stony judgment. What manner of gods were these? Ancient texts paint them with varied brushes. Some portray the Anunnaki as wisdom deities who guided kings and taught humans to build, write, and govern. Others describe them as miners, extracting unknown resources from deep within the earth, their strength unmatched, their purpose mysterious. Still other accounts place them among the stars, descending in fiery chariots wrapped in brilliant light. Were they truly gods, flesh and blood beings, or something else entirely? This question has fascinated scholars for centuries. The Sumerians never called these writings mythology. To them, these were historical records. The Anunnaki were as real as the kings who constructed temples and the rivers nourishing their crops. Over time, modern interpretation blurred these lines, with historians uncomfortable with the supernatural classifying these beings as myth. Not all agree. Some researchers have drawn compelling parallels between the Anunnaki and the Nephilim mentioned in ancient Hebrew texts. Genesis contains this cryptic passage. There were giants in the earth in those days, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These Nephilim, like the Anunnaki, descended from above to intermingle with humanity. The word Nephilim derives from the Hebrew root NFL, meaning to fall or to descend, echoing the same celestial descent as the Anunnaki. Could they be the same beings viewed through different cultural lenses? This possibility exists, as civilizations often adapt stories across time and borders. The Babylonians, inheriting Sumerian traditions, created their own myths. The Enuma Elish speaks of cosmic battles and divine beings shaping heaven and earth. Here the Anunnaki appear not as background figures, but as central architects of creation and human fate. Etymology offers further insight. The Sumerian roots of Anunnaki, An, heaven, and Ki, earth, yield those who from heaven to earth came. Not born or created, but arrived, implying journey and descent. This definition captivates archaeologists and alternative theorists alike. Some propose the Anunnaki were advanced extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth in primordial times, perhaps to mine resources, guide early humans, or for purposes beyond our comprehension. To Sumerians, these weren't mere legends. They built temples to honor them, offered sacrifices, inscribed their names in prayers, and invoked them in rituals. Their influence transcended time, with later Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians preserving their legacy through statues, hymns, and stories spanning thousands of years. The Anunnaki and Igigi endure in our imagination, our questions, and in history's silent places where stone and dust whisper of forgotten gods. Perhaps, just perhaps, they exist beyond memory alone. The winds over Sumer whispered many names, but among them one echoed more than most: Etana, shepherd king of Kish. His tale, preserved in clay, carries not just royal legacy, but the yearning of a man desperate for what all rulers craved, an heir to continue his bloodline. Etana's story begins not with conquest, but with prayer. Kish prospered under his rule. He was divinely chosen, blessed by fate. Yet his palace halls remained silent, without a child's laughter or a son to inherit his throne. In solitary chambers, Etana gazed skyward. The gods granted him power, victory, and wisdom, but not his heart's deepest desire. Thus began his quest, not for wealth or glory, but for something sacred, the plant of birth, a mythical herb bestowing fertility, hidden somewhere between earth and sky. For a mortal king to find it, he needed aid not from priests or warriors, but from a creature of feather and fate, the eagle. This was no ordinary bird. As lions rule the land, eagles commanded the sky. But before becoming Etana's guide, the eagle had its own tale of betrayal and consequence. Once in a sacred grove, an eagle and serpent formed a pact to share a great tree. The eagle nesting above, the serpent dwelling below. Harmony would prevail if they respected each other's domain, but harmony is fragile, and temptation never truly fades. One day, while the serpent was absent, the eagle gazed down at the serpent's defenseless young. Defying their sacred oath, it swooped down and devoured them all. The serpent returned to find only silence and scattered feathers. The gods do not forgive broken promises. With Shamash, the sun god's help, the serpent laid a trap, luring the eagle with false promises before striking. The once proud bird was cast into a pit, wings broken and pride shattered, left to die slowly among its prey's bones. But fate had other designs. Etana, searching for the birth plant, discovered the pit. Inside, the eagle called out in pain and regret. Moved by compassion, the king offered help, not from obligation, but from the mercy inherent in worthy rulers. Grateful and renewed, the eagle promised repayment. It would carry Etana where no man had ventured, to the heavens themselves. The king mounted the eagle's back and they soared upward. The world below shrank to patchwork rivers and fields, while stars drew near. Heaven's gates shimmered distantly, but no mortal can long endure the divine realm without consequence. Etana grew fearful. The thin air, blinding light, and vast distance from earth overwhelmed him. He begged the eagle to return, though the plant of birth awaited above. Terror overcame him. Some versions claim they reached the gods' gates. Others say they plummeted earthward, the sky tearing behind them like a wound. Either way, Etana's tale offers no simple victory. It examines yearning, the impossible desire to challenge nature, bargain with heaven, and rewrite destiny. Like all great myths, it endures not by providing answers, but by asking essential questions. Why would a ruler risk everything for an heir? Why does betrayal poison sacred agreements? Why do we reach beyond our grasp? The tablets recounting this story emerged from Nineveh's ruins within King Ashurbanipal's library, a ruler obsessed with preserving ancient wisdom. Among thousands of discovered texts, the Etana epic stood out for its poetic language and striking image of a man flying toward stars on a bird's back. Even older fragments appeared at Mari, Tel Harmal, and Susa, showing how widely the story traveled across the region. Etana's tale wasn't just legend but lineage. He appears in the Sumerian king list, that curious document blending history with divine elements. According to this record, Etana ruled Kish for over 2,500 years, obviously symbolic rather than literal, but his inclusion suggests something profound. Actual kings governing real cities claimed him as divine heritage. The Etana myth wasn't merely entertainment or religious narrative, but dynastic propaganda wrapped in wonder, a way to legitimize power through divine favor, for kings to proclaim, "I too am chosen, I too fly on destiny's wings." Yet beneath layers of politics lies the story's heart. A man, a bird, a journey between realms. Archaeologists have uncovered cylinder seals in Kish's ruins, depicting a figure clutching an eagle rising heavenward. Though tiny, these seals tell the same tale passed through generations, of a ruler daring to request more from the gods. Did Etana find the plant of birth? Some versions say yes, that he returned home blessed with a son, securing his lineage. Others end in silence with fall and shadow, a king lost among clouds. Perhaps the answer doesn't matter, for the myth's power lies not in resolution, but in the leap itself. It reminds us of something eternal, that every soul, king or commoner, gazes skyward wondering what lies beyond, and some dare to reach for it. In the heart of the ancient world, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers meet desert sands, ruled a king unlike any other, Naram-Sin of Akkad. His name, etched in time, stands as testament to power and warning against challenging the gods. Naram-Sin wasn't merely a ruler but a conqueror. Under him, Akkad became history's most formidable empire. His soldiers marched across Mesopotamia, defeating enemies and expanding borders. Sumerian cities bowed before his might, and his name echoed with reverence throughout the known world. In many eyes, he was a god among men, divinely ordained. But as years passed, power weighed heavily on Naram-Sin's shoulders. His victories bred arrogance. He believed his strength came not just from armies, but from divine favor that had carried him thus far. This very pride led to a fateful decision, forever altering Akkad's destiny. At the core of his hubris was defiance toward Enlil, Sumer's supreme deity. As god of wind and air, Enlil had long protected Akkad. His magnificent temple stood at the kingdom's center, its towering ziggurat reaching skyward, symbolizing divine connection. Enlil had blessed Naram-Sin with power. But the king, intoxicated by success, began viewing himself as greater than any god. Naram-Sin ordered Enlil's sacred temple destroyed, believing deities no longer influenced him, that he had surpassed their power and needed no divine favor. He desecrated Enlil's temple, burning it and defiling holy ground, thinking gods would ignore his actions since Akkad's might stood behind him. But gods remember, and Enlil, enraged by this insolence, withdrew protection from Akkad. His wrath came swiftly and terribly. The once prosperous kingdom began crumbling. The first sign of divine punishment was famine. Rains ceased, and Akkad's fertile lands, once rich with crops, withered to dust. People pleaded for mercy, but their cries went unanswered. Grain stores emptied and starvation swept across the land. The proud city that stood as civilization's beacon now faced devastating hunger. The punishment continued. The Gutians, barbaric mountain people from the north, recognized Akkad's weakness as opportunity. With savage raids, they invaded the crumbling empire, burning villages, sacking cities, and slaughtering resistors. Akkad, once mighty, stood defenseless before these invaders. Thus completed Akkad's curse. The great kingdom reduced to rubble faded into history. Naram-Sin, who defied gods, lost everything. His empire destroyed, his people scattered, his name cursed. In subsequent years, Naram-Sin's tale became cautionary, a parable passed through generations. The gods would not tolerate defiance, and even the mightiest rulers could fall to divine wrath. Do not anger the gods, the story warned, for even the greatest can be humbled by their fury. Was Akkad's fall truly divine punishment or natural consequence of the king's actions? This question has puzzled historians for centuries. Historically, Akkad's decline stemmed from multiple factors. While desecrating Enlil's temple was certainly bold, it wasn't the sole reason for collapse. Akkad's expansion brought conflict with neighbors, and constant warfare had weakened defenses. The Gutian invasion dealt a significant blow, while preceding famine likely resulted from prolonged drought and mismanagement. Yet mythologically, Naram-Sin's defiance represents more than political downfall. It explores the delicate relationship between humans and divine forces. The gods aren't merely symbols of nature or fate, but active world shapers determining royal and imperial destinies. Naram Sin's defiance of Enlil serves as moral lesson. No mortal, however powerful, escapes divine judgment. His arrogance and refusal to acknowledge higher powers ultimately destroyed his kingdom, a realm once standing as testament to those very gods. The Naram Sin myth powerfully reminds us of human power's limits and humility's importance. The king's downfall isn't merely political failure, but caution against overreaching and false invincibility. The gods here aren't capricious or needlessly vengeful, but represent cosmic order and balance. By defying this balance, Naram Sin triggered events leading to his ruin. This story extends beyond myth to become central in Akkad's historical narrative, shaping how future generations viewed the relationship between kings and gods. Though Akkad fell, it left rich legacy influencing subsequent cultures. As Akkad faded into obscurity, Naram Sin's defiance endured, preserved in clay in people's memory, passed through generations. For those reflecting on this tale, one theme remains central. The gods are always watching. While mortals enjoy temporary triumph, their power remains fleeting. The gods ultimately determine fate, and no ruler, however mighty, escapes their judgment. Akkad's fall, like all great myths, contains deeper truth, speaking not only to the ancient world, but to all seeking to understand power's fragility, hubris's consequences, and the eternal dance between mortals and divine forces. Among ancient deities, one stood as both light-bringer and justice-bearer, Utu Shamash, the sun god. His name inspired reverence and awe, for he commanded the sun's life-giving power and authority to judge both living and dead. Known by dual names, Utu to Sumerians, Shamash to Akkadians, his role in the pantheon was unmatched. Beyond being heaven's light, he ruled over justice, guiding the world with truth's rays. Utu Shamash's divine role touched every aspect of ancient life. As sun god, he controlled the sun's daily journey across the sky, bringing warmth and light. But his influence extended further. Utu Shamash also served as supreme judge, arbitrating both human and divine matters. His light wasn't merely warmth, but truth's beacon, illuminating righteous and wicked alike, leaving nowhere for shadows to hide. In ancient myths, Utu Shamash's family connections mattered as much as his cosmic role. Son of Nana the moon god, and twin brother to Inanna, goddess of love and war, his relationship with Inanna showed mutual respect, despite their different domains. While Inanna governed war, love, and fertility, Utu Shamash ruled justice and the heavens. Together they formed a powerful cosmic pair, balancing light and dark, order and chaos, life and death. As sun god, Utu Shamash was often depicted with a solar disk above his head, symbolizing celestial power. His fiery horse-drawn chariot carried him daily across the sky, illuminating earth with radiance. This winged chariot racing through heavens became one of Mesopotamian iconography's most powerful symbols, representing the unstoppable justice Utu Shamash embodied. Throughout myths, Utu Shamash served as divine judge, resolving disputes and maintaining order. His judicial role extended beyond the living to include judgment of the dead, weighing their deeds and determining afterlife fates. His verdicts were fair and impartial, guided by unwavering truth. One famous story featuring Utu Shamash involves hero King Etana of Kish. During his quest for the birth plant to secure an heir, Etana faced great obstacles. The eagle and snake, once symbolic companions of harmony, betrayed him, causing a near-fatal fall. In this peril, Etana called upon Utu Shamash for aid. The ever-watchful and just sun god answered, guiding Etana safely through trials with wisdom's light and power's radiance. Utu Shamash aided not only kings and mortals, but played significant roles in other legends. When Gilgamesh, great hero king of Uruk, and his companion Enkidu faced danger during their quest for wisdom and immortality, they sought Utu Shamash's guidance. Again the sun god answered, illuminating Gilgamesh's path. Yet not all pleas received favorable response. One intriguing tale involves Utu Shamash refusing his sister Inanna's request. In the Hulupu tree myth, Inanna asks his help, clearing a tree to craft a throne and bed. Despite her pleas, Utu Shamash refuses, citing justice and fairness. This refusal highlights his character, Unmoved by family ties or emotions, his decisions stemmed from justice, making him both revered and feared. In the afterlife, Utu Shamash's role as divine judge truly shone. Overseeing departed souls, he determined their underworld fates. His light pierced netherworld darkness, illuminating judgment and ensuring justice. The righteous received peace and favor, the wicked faced suffering. His impartiality further cemented his position as justice god. Utu Shamash's cultural impact extended beyond Mesopotamian myths. His influence appears in Hammurabi's Code, the famous Babylonian law collection. In its preamble, Hammurabi claims divine origin for these laws, including Shamash's guidance. The king presents these laws as divinely ordained, reflecting the god's role as ultimate judge. The code itself, establishing principles of justice, fairness, and retribution, was believed inspired by Shamash's wisdom. Temples honoring Utu Shamash rose throughout Mesopotamia, most famously the Ababa, House of Light in Sippar. This grand temple housed a statue of Shamash said to radiate divine light, representing the god's omnipresent guidance and judgment. Pilgrims journeyed to this sacred site seeking favor and judgment on matters ranging from personal disputes to divine will questions. As centuries passed, Utu Shamash worship continued influencing Mesopotamian people and beyond. His legacy as sun god and divine judge endured, shaping ancient civilizations' religious and moral frameworks. His patronage of travelers ensured importance for those crossing the vast ancient Near East. Utu Shamash's symbols, the solar disk, winged chariot, and association with justice, became deeply embedded in cultural consciousness. He represented more than sunlight. He embodied truth, the divine force ensuring world order, right triumphing over wrong, and justice illuminating even Earth's darkest corners. Looking back at Utu Shamash's legacy reveals more than a sun deity. We find divine order's symbol, a reminder that, however dark the world becomes, justice's light always rises, guiding the righteous and punishing the wicked. His significance extends beyond Mesopotamian myths to humanity's ongoing quest for truth and fairness. Ultimately, Utu Shamash's story transcends divine power and mythological grandeur to reflect humanity's eternal struggle with justice, a theme resonating across cultures and centuries. In this eternal quest, the sun god's light continues guiding us toward righteousness and truth. As the ancient world unfolded, Mesopotamian gods left indelible marks on subsequent civilizations. Among mythology's most intriguing aspects are shared themes across cultures. Two divine groups stand central to this exploration: the Anunnaki and Nephilim. Though seemingly distant, they share striking similarities, particularly the motif of heavenly descent to Earth. This shared element connects them in ways raising questions, sparking debates, and drawing comparisons between ancient Mesopotamian myths and later religious traditions. The Anunnaki, as explored, were ancient Sumerian deities depicted as powerful gods descending from heaven to earth. Their name, derived from Sumerian roots An, heaven, and Kait, earth, literally means those who from heaven to earth came. Known for great power, wisdom, and influence over humanity, they weren't abstract concept gods, but deeply involved in mortal affairs, often portrayed as regulating, guiding, or shaping human destiny. Similarly, the Judeo-Christian Nephilim are described as heaven-descended beings. Genesis refers to them as sons of God, who took human wives, producing giant offspring. This celestial descent and human interaction forms a key parallel between Anunnaki and Nephilim. Both traditions describe these beings possessing power and wisdom, their heavenly descent marking significant, often unsettling moments in mythological narratives. The most striking similarity is their role as divine beings interacting with humanity. Both Sumerian and biblical accounts depict beings descending to earth and influencing the mortal realm through direct involvement or mere presence. This shared divine descent motif speaks to a deep cultural archetype across traditions, the idea that heaven and earth aren't wholly separate, and divinity can and sometimes must intervene in mortal affairs. For the Anunnaki, this descent forms part of broader cosmic order. They weren't merely celestial entities with passing human interest, but participated in world creation, civilization shaping, and earth life regulation. Similarly, the Nephilim's descent in Genesis represents a critical event shaping human history. These divine beings' actions led to powerful giants and ultimately contributed to the Great Flood destroying humanity. In both traditions, these descending figures profoundly impact the human race. While Anunnaki and Nephilim share heavenly descent motifs, another layer exists in the Igigi mythology, another Mesopotamian divine group. Often described as Anunnaki subgroups, the Igigi's role becomes fascinating when compared to Nephilim. Some Mesopotamian myths portray Igigi as celestial beings responsible for God's labor-intensive tasks, like working in heaven or serving the underworld. However, the Igigi's role dramatically shifts in Enki's human creation myth, where they tire of heavy labor and rebel against gods, demanding new beings to assume their tasks. This rebellion triggers significant transformation. The gods create humans to bear work's burden, casting aside the Igigi. This Igigi story parallels the biblical Watchers narrative, often seen as direct Nephilim counterparts. Like Igigi, Watchers are divine beings descending from heaven to interact with humanity, with significant consequences. In Enoch, Watchers teach humanity forbidden knowledge leading to punishment. This rebellion and knowledge-sharing mirrors the Igigi revolt. Both stories deeply connect to divine intervention, transgression, and consequences for crossing mortal divine boundaries. The Anunnaki, Igigi, and Nephilim connection extends beyond specific cultural contexts. These myths in various forms highlight pervasive cosmic struggles transcending individual cultures. Divine beings descending from heaven to interact with humanity reflects common ancient belief in heaven-earth connection and gods as active human life participants. As Mesopotamian civilizations laid groundwork for Western religion and mythology, their influence appears in subsequent religious traditions. Mesopotamian thought impact traces through biblical stories of angels, man's fall, and wicked judgment. Shared themes of divine descent, knowledge-sharing, and punishment echo through time, appearing in Judeo-Christian narratives and later religious and mythological traditions. Moreover, Mesopotamian myths influenced other Near Eastern religions. Zoroastrianism, Hellenistic philosophy, and Judaism bear Mesopotamian traces, particularly regarding divine-human realm relationships. Divine justice and judgment seen in Mesopotamian gods mirrors the divine judgment concept in Zoroastrianism, where souls' deeds await after death. Similarly, divine beings descending to teach or guide humanity appears in Greek mythology, especially in stories of gods and demigods walking among mortals and shaping fates. The shared motifs of Anunnaki, Igigi, and Nephilim offer fascinating glimpses into how ancient cultures understood heaven-earth relationships and divine beings' power over human fate. These cross-tradition similarities suggest heavenly descending gods wasn't unique to one culture, but a universal theme resonating deeply with ancient minds. Whether viewed as gods, sages, or historical figures, their presence in ancient cultural myths highlights timeless connection between divine and mortal, a connection still shaping world understanding today. And so the Anunnaki, Igigi, and Nephilim story endures, carried across time and space, influencing ancient world cultures and echoing through subsequent religious and mythological traditions. Their legacy, bound by shared heavenly descent motif, testifies to these ancient myths' enduring power, stories continuing to captivate, inspire, and challenge our understanding of divine and mortal realms.